between hedge and ditch, and for the most part under overhanging boughs. It was plain, besides, he had an eye to the true interests of Mr. Harker; for though the cart drew up more than once at the doors of public houses, it was only the sergeant who set foot to ground, and, being equipped himself with a quart bottle, once more proceeded on his rural drive. To give any idea of the complexity of the sergeant's course, a map of that part of Middlesex would be required, and my publisher is averse from the expense. Suffice it, that, a little after the night had closed, the cart was brought to a standstill in a woody road, where the sergeant lifted from among the parcels, and tenderly deposited upon the wayside, the inanimate form of Harker. 'If you come to before daylight,' thought the sergeant, 'I shall be surprised for one.' From the various pockets of the slumbering carrier he gently collected the sum of 17 shillings and eightpence sterling, and, getting once more into the cart, drove thoughtfully away. 'If I was exactly sure of where I was, it would be a good job,' he reflected. 'Anyway, here's a corner.' He turned it, and found himself upon the river side. A little above him the lights of a houseboat shone cheerfully, and already close at hand, so close that it was impossible to avoid their notice, 3 persons, a lady and 2 gentlemen, were deliberately drawing near. The sergeant put his trust in the convenient darkness of the night, and drove on to meet them. One of the gentlemen, who was of a portly figure, walked in the midst of the fairway, and presently held up a staff by way of a signal. 'My man, have you seen anything of a carrier's cart?' he cried. Dark as it was, it seemed to the sergeant as though the slimmer of the 2 gentlemen had made a motion to prevent the other speaking, and, finding himself too late, had skipped aside with some alacrity. At another season Sergeant Brand would have paid more attention to the fact, but he was then immersed in the perils of his own predicament. 'A carrier's cart?' said he, with a perceptible uncertainty of voice. 'No, sir.' 'Ah!' said the portly gentleman, and stood aside to let the sergeant pass. The lady appeared to bend forward and study the cart with every mark of sharpened curiosity, the slimmer gentleman still keeping in the rear. 'I wonder what the devil they would be at,' thought Sergeant Brand; and, looking fearfully back, he saw the trio standing together in the midst of the way, like folk consulting. The bravest of military heroes are not always equal to themselves as to their reputation, and fear, on some singular provocation, will find a lodgment in the most unfamiliar bosom. The word 'detective' might have been heard to gurgle in the sergeant's throat, and, vigorously applying the whip, he fled up the riverside road to Great Haverham at the gallop of the carrier's horse. The lights of the houseboat flashed upon the flying waggon as it passed. The beat of hoofs and the rattle of the vehicle gradually coalesced and died away, and presently, to the trio on the riverside, silence had redescended. 'It's the most extraordinary thing,' cried the slimmer of those 2 gentlemen, 'but that's the cart.' 'And I know I saw a piano,' said the girl. 'O, it's the cart, certainly; and the extraordinary thing is, it's not the man,' added the first. 'It must be the man, Gid, it must be,' said the portly one. 'Well, then, why is he running away?' asked Gideon. 'His horse bolted, I suppose,' said the Squirradical. 'Nonsense! I heard the whip going like a flail,' said Gideon. 'It simply defies the human reason.' 'I'll tell you,' broke in the girl. 'He came round that corner. Suppose we went and what do you call it in books? Followed his trail? There may be a house there, or somebody who saw him, or something.' 'Well, suppose we did, for the fun of the thing,' said Gideon. The fun of the thing, it would appear, consisted in the extremely close juxtaposition of himself and Miss Hazeltine. To Uncle Ned, who was excluded from these simple pleasures, the excursion appeared hopeless from the first; and when a fresh perspective of darkness opened up, dimly contained between the park palings on the one side and a hedge and a ditch upon the other, the whole without the smallest signal of human habitation, the Squirradical drew up. 'This is a wild goose chase,' said he. With the cessation of the footfalls, another sound smote upon their ears. "Oh, what's that?" cried Julia. "I can't think," said Gideon. The Squirradical had his stick presented like a sword. "Gid," he began, "Gid, I—" "Oh, Mr Forsyth!" cried the girl. "Oh, don't go forward. You don't know what it might be. It might be something perfectly horrid." "It might be the devil itself," said Gideon, disengaging himself. "But I am going to see it." "Don't be rash, Gid," cried his uncle. The barrister drew near to the sound, which was certainly of a portentous character. In quality it appeared to blend the strains of the cow, the foghorn, and the mosquito, and the startling manner of its enunciation added incalculably to its terrors. A dark object, not unlike the human form divine, appeared on the brink of the ditch. "It's a man," said Gideon. "It's only a man. He seems to be asleep and snoring. Hullo!" he added, a moment after. "There must be something wrong with him. He won't waken." Gideon produced his vestas, struck one, and by its light recognised the tow head of Harker. "This is the man," said he, "as drunk as Belial. I see the whole story." And to his companions, who had now ventured to rejoin him, he set forth a theory of the divorce between the carrier and his cart, which was not unlike the truth. "Drunken brute!" said Uncle Ned. "Let's get him to a pump, and give him what he deserves." "Not at all," said Gideon. "It is highly undesirable he should see us together. And really, do you know, I'm very much obliged to him, for this is about the luckiest thing that could possibly have occurred. It seems to me, Uncle Ned, I declare to heaven, it seems to me, I'm clear of it."
"Clear of what?" asked the Squirradical.
"The whole affair," cried Gideon. "The man has been ass enough to steal the cart and the dead body. What he hopes to do with it, I neither know nor care. My hands are free. Jimson ceases. Down with Jimson. Shake hands with me, Uncle Ned. Julia, darling girl. Julia, I—"
"Gideon, Gideon," said his uncle.
"Oh, it's all right, uncle. When we're going to be married so soon," said Gideon. "You know you said so on the houseboat."
"Did I?" said Uncle Ned. "I'm certain I said no such thing."
"Appeal to him. Tell him he did. Get on his soft side," cried Gideon. "He's a real brick, if you get on his soft side." "Dear Mr Bloomfield," said Julia, "I know Gideon will be such a very good boy, and he has promised me to do such a lot of law, and I will see to it that he does too. And you know it is so very steadying to young men. Everybody admits that, though of course I know I have no money, Mr Bloomfield," she added.
"My dear young lady, as this rapscallion told you to day on the boat, Uncle Ned has plenty," said the Squirradical, "and I can never forget that you have been shamefully defrauded. So, as there's nobody looking, you had better give your Uncle Ned a kiss. There, you rogue," resumed Mr Bloomfield, when the ceremony had been daintily performed. "This very pretty young lady is yours, and a vast deal more than you deserve. But now let us get back to the houseboat, get steam on the launch, and away back to town."
"That's the thing," cried Gideon; "and to morrow there will be no houseboat, and no Jimson, and no carrier's cart, and no piano. And when Harker awakes on the ditch side, he may tell himself the whole affair has been a dream."
"Aha!" said Uncle Ned. "But there's another man who will have a different awakening. That fellow in the cart will find he has been too clever by half."
"Uncle Ned and Julia," said Gideon, "I am as happy as the King of Tartary. My heart is like a threepenny bit. My heels are like feathers. I am out of all my troubles. Julia's hand is in mine. Is this a time for anything but handsome sentiments? Why, there's not room in me for anything that's not angelic. And when I think of that poor unhappy devil in the cart, I stand here in the night and cry, with a single heart, God help him."
"Amen," said Uncle Ned.
End of Chapter 12.